Converse, the oldest, the most popular shoe of all time. It has been said that 60% of Americans have owned at least one pair of Converse. In today's episode, we will discuss the man behind the success of Converse, Chuck Taylor. Legend has it he was trying to get somewhere as he was late. Instead of walking, he was running. And a misstep at a staircase, he fell, losing everything he had. Annoyed, he stood back up, telling himself there has to be a better way. Marquise Mills Converse created the first shoes with rubber soles so that this would never happen again. In 1908, Marquise opened doors to the Converse rubber sole, which at that time only sold stuffed boots with a famous sole. And this is the beginning of Converse. About 15 years ago, a new sport was invented, which was becoming popular among schools. It didn't require big outdoor grounds. The game was easy to play and the rules were easy to follow. Knowing that there would be a demand for shoes and basketball, the company decided to get into athletic shoes. Coming years would be some of the most tragic years in human history. The world is at war. 40 million souls suffered the consequences of war, and sadly, it didn't stop there. After soldiers returned back home, the first case of Spanish flu was recorded. Times were hard for everyone, but it was right after these times when Converse introduced the all-time popular, the Converse Chuck Taylor All-Star. How did that happen? After lots of research and development, the very first version of the All-Star basketball shoe was introduced in 1917. In 1920, their shoe was renamed the All-Star to convince athletes it was a real champion's shoe. The All-Star was the first mass-produced basketball shoe in North America, but because of worldly events, sales were slow. However, it all changed when a man entered their factory. Charles Hollis Taylor, a basketball player, walked in looking for a solution to his sore feet. He persuaded the company to create a line of shoes designed purely for basketball. He knew instantly that the new shoe was going places and joined Converse as a salesman. And his impact on the company was much more than a salesman. Taylor would drive all over the country, spreading good word about the shoes that would soon bear his name. He hosted basketball clinics and promoted All-Star. After all clinics, coaches would order All-Star. The sales continued as every year, as players would remember their coach, the company he belonged to, and the shoe he was selling. With Taylor's background and his style of presentation, Converse was officially in the 1936 Olympics, when basketball was added to the Olympic roster. Taylor did not only visit locker rooms, but he also visited YMCAs and high school gyms across the country, directly communicating with athletes. Being in the Olympics and in high schools across the country, the next generation of professionals began wearing All-Stars. By now, America, including many other countries, was suffering a severe worldwide economic depression, the Great Depression. Converse was looking for ways to improve their products, to make the shoe stand out, and looking at Taylor's passion, Converse knew what to do. Converse showed their appreciation by imprinting Taylor's name on their logo. And so, the Chuck Taylor All-Star basketball shoe was born. Buyers, which at the time were mostly athletes and knew Taylor, saw the gesture by Converse. The sales went through the roof. Taylor decided to serve as a captain in the Air Force during World War II, and with him, the Chuck Taylor All-Star went to war, becoming the official sneaker of the U.S. Armed Forces. Meanwhile, back home, basketball was now slowly becoming a major professional sport, with the merger of the National Basketball League and the Basketball Association of America, the National Basketball Association, NBA. Chuck Taylor All-Stars were the shoe for professionals. The famous shoe had an 80% share of the entire sneaker industry. Because of his tireless efforts promoting, Taylor was called the ambassador to basketball. And in 1968, Charles H. Taylor was inducted in the Basketball Hall of Fame. Sadly, in 1969, the man who made Converse what it was passed away due to a heart attack. Converse was just never the same after him. The world of sport was exposed to new technologies. In the 1970s, Converse began to struggle financially due to the increase in competition and outdated technology. Athletes were moving towards Adidas and Nike. Converse was now moving from courts to videos. They were more likely to be worn by musicians and actors. They were seen on the feet of some of the biggest musicians in the world, including Wiz Khalifa, the Rolling Stones, Sex Pistols. As time went by, more competition came and Converse kind of started to fade away. In 2001, Converse filed for bankruptcy. The brand itself was well established, so a competitor of Converse made the decision to take over for $305 million. The new ownership was Nike. They closed down all North American manufacturing plants and moved manufacturing to Asia. They did keep the strongest part of Converse, the Chuck Taylors. If it wasn't for Taylor, Converse never would have made it to the basketball courts. And if it wasn't for his sore feet, he would have never visited the factory. Thanks to Chuck Taylor, people all around the world have a chance to enjoy Converse. Until next time, have a good one.